All right, I think we're all set. Good morning, Chairperson, board members, and staff. Lobby is open and the recording has begun.
Great, thank you, Dustin. Good morning, everybody, and Happy New Year. We will convene the first board meeting of 2022, which is January 5th. First item is approval of meeting minutes of our December 8th, 2021 meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
This is Ali. I move approval of the December the 8th board meeting minutes.
And a second. Did you second that? You might have been muted.
No, I'm sorry.
No,
I was not at that meeting, so it's
right.
between you two. So
Yeah, that's why it says Ollie moved, David approved. Sorry. The first of the year, I second, and it's approved. Not only does it say that on my notes, it's highlighted in yellow.
Happy New Year, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Moving on, rulemaking timelines for both alcohol and cannabis, and I'll turn it over to Kathy Hoffman, our policy and rules manager. Good morning and Happy New Year.
Good morning and Happy New Year to you, Chair Postman, board members Garrett and Howdy. Just a brief rulemaking update for today, starting with the alcohol rules. With our Acts During Rule project, conceptual draft rules have been completed for that project, and we do have a listen and learn session scheduled for January 27th from 9 to noon. Messaging should go out on that next week. Just wanted to let you know, and I know I shared this yesterday, but once again, 3 comments were received on the CR 101 that we filed for that project. And the formal comment period ended on November 19th, but we continue to accept comments if they come. With respect to general rulemaking, electronic service project is coming along nicely. Have had a couple of internal meetings on that and expect to file the CR 101, or at least bring it to you for approval on February 2nd, with a CR 102 prepared as soon as March 15th on that project. It's very technical, so we're not expecting a lot of controversy with putting that project forward. On to cannabis rule projects. Quality control rule CR 102 was filed last month, December 8th. Hearing will be held on February 2nd. And to my knowledge, and Jeff can jump in here if he wishes, if he's received any further comments, but to date, I believe we've received about 8 comments and some on that particular project. And then I will present the CR 103 on Thc Compounds following this presentation. And then for social equity and cannabis rules, we are starting to work on draft conceptual rules for that work. We're thinking about stakeholder engagement options. Hope to host a listen and learn session by the end of February. So it's a very aggressive timeline, but we think we can do it. But we want to make sure that we're moving as quickly as possible on those rules. So that's the end of the update for today. Can I answer any questions for you?
No, I don't see any. Thank you. Why don't we move then to the board adoption of the 103 and the presentation for the CR 103 for evaluating THC compounds.
Thanks, Chairperson. So today I'd like to ask you.
Hold on one second there. I'm sorry. Question, Member Huggy?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought I said, come on. Okay. Go ahead.
All right. So requesting adoption of the rules offered in the CR 103 package before you concerning evaluation of THC compounds. And I know we've discussed the procedural history of this project several times in the past, but in case meeting attendees aren't aware, we began this project in May of last year as part of a larger iterative process designed to respond to a rapidly changing landscape of THC compounds. We delivered a dialogue session last summer focusing on plant chemistry that helped to inform the creation of these rules and eventually request legislation, that's Senate Bill 5547 and its companion House Bill 1668, concerning the expansion of LCB regulatory authority over compounds that may be impairing. We held a listen and learn session on these rules in September, and the proposal was approved in October. Public hearing was held last month, and 2 comments were received, and those were included in your packet. The one substantive comment we received was asking that we, well, actually, it would have been a substantive comment had we accepted it, but it was asking that we change the word may to must in a particular section of rule, and we did not accept that suggestion. The other comment was from a hemp retailer, just expressing some of their concerns around THC compounds in general. So if adopted today, I will file the CR 103 with the code revisor, and rules would become effective 31 days after filing, or February 2nd. Any questions?
I just have one or two maybe. And if I just, everybody else, there seems like there's somebody unmuted in the crowd there, but I'm sorry. So your memo says that there was requests for the definition of synthetic and synthetic cannabinoid, and that's not in the rules, but it is in our proposed, it's in the agency request legislation that's been introduced. And so that's happening. And can you just tell us, we've talked so much about the interplay of rules and statute. What determines that? Why is that something that you think we shouldn't do as an agency in rulemaking, but is that just that that it would require, you think our read of it is that it's in statute today and we need that change in statute?
We did believe that, or we did find that it would be appropriate to define it in statute since it's already part of the Controlled Substances Act.
Right. So
to have the legislature take that on would be more appropriate than the agency trying to define it in rule.
Right. Okay. And that's sort of the process we went through most of this year, sorting these things out. Where do we have authority today that we could do in rulemaking? Where do we need more authority that we want to put on that list of things that we put into our agency request legislation? Together, the two of them should give us that regulatory system that we've all talked about so much this year to give us what we need to respond to these compounds.
That's correct.
Yeah. And we need both.
We do need both to be able to move forward with this and address the situation appropriately and safely.
Okay, good. I'm confident we will get both, but I just want to make sure of that. Any other questions or comments on this? No? Anything more on this before we take a motion to approve the 103, Kathy?
No, Chairperson, thank you.
Okay. And so with that, then we'll entertain a motion for approval of the CR 103 for evaluating THC compounds.
I will move approval of the 103 for evaluating THC compounds.
This is Ali, I second.
Great, and then that is approved unanimously. Thank you very much, Ms. Hoffman. Thanks for all the work on this one. I know it's not done yet, but this is a big step forward, so thank you for all of that. Okay, we are to the point of the meeting where we will hear from the general public who have signed up prior to the meeting starting to address the board. A couple of reminders. One, as always, these are recorded, and the meeting is posted online soon after the meeting will end. If anybody wants to go back and look at it. Everybody's given 4 minutes. There's no exceptions to that. Everybody gets the same. When you're 30 seconds from the end of that, Dustin will interject politely to remind you that you have 30 seconds left. He's not trying to be rude in his interruption, but we don't have any way to signal it by lights or anything. So just listen for that, and then we will ask you to wrap up. If when I call your name, if you could just, again, state your name and affiliation so we have that officially and clearly, that would be great. And with that, we will start with the first person I have signed up is Philip Petty. Mr. Petty.
Can you hear me now?
Sure can. Hear you and see you fine. Good morning.
Okay, good morning, everyone. And how's everybody this morning?
So far, so good.
Okay, great, good. Well, hey, I'm Philip Petty. I'm with the Washington State African American Cannabis Association. And I've been on a lot of the meetings from the task force and the community giving their feedback on some of the things that we should be doing. And I was wondering, I haven't heard anything about that. I haven't heard in terms of, are we going to use the recommendations from the community that were voted on? And actually, one of the members of the LCB voted to approve those. And so I just, it's kind of been quiet. And then when we were going to have meetings on it, it just seemed like those meetings got postponed or pushed back. So I was concerned that, you know, it's kind of been a stealthy process anyway, not knowing, you know, what's going to happen and what's going on. And I was wondering if those recommendations that we came up with together, that if the LCB is in legislation or anything and writing any bills, because I know there's a rubric on you know, who would qualify for these social equity licenses. I also know that there's some, you know, things in terms of restrictions that would probably have to be removed to add new licenses. Are we going to add more than the 38 licenses? Because we know that 20 of those are in moratorium and 18 of the licenses are probably going to be good, but are they going to be movable? There are just so many questions that I have. And these are things that we addressed in these meetings. And it just seems as though I haven't heard anything from LCB in terms of, you know, what direction they are going in. And I'm really concerned about the legislation piece, because if, as it was said by a couple of the members from the LCB, was that, you know, it was going to take legislation in terms of the moratorium. And, you know, we had came up with the 300 licenses between 2022 and 2029. And we agreed upon that, and we agreed upon the rubric, which was going to be used to qualify the individuals for those licenses. So I just was trying to, you know, as a group, while I had you, maybe you could, somebody could give me some feedback on that. I mean, where are we in terms of that right now? Are we, is the LCB in legislation? Are they writing a bill? Because they said they needed legislation to do some of this work. And then it leads to my next thing is, why do we need legislations? Because you were able to give out licenses in the past. You didn't need to go to the legislator to do it. But when we came up with this social equity equality deal, it seems as though now we got to go through that extra hoop of going to legislation. And it just seems like, I guess, and is that only
You have 30 seconds.
Is that only for social equity people, or is that for anybody? And maybe you can, in these last 30 seconds, you can answer that for me.
I can't answer it in the last 30 seconds, but I'll tell you, we have some other people signed up to talk. Let's get through the people we have, and we'll try to address it. My sense, though, is we'll probably have to get back to you with more details, because I don't know that we have the people on this call now who can answer that question off the top of their head. But I have a few things I can share with you after everybody else gets through. Member Garrett may as well, and then we'll make sure that we're in touch in detail to address those questions.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you for joining us. Next up is David Busby.
Thanks. I'm David Busby. I'm with OpenTHC. I hope you guys are receiving okay. Congratulations on the CCRS business and all that. But some data that was critical for the cannabis industry has become significantly more difficult to access. The agency has asked us to use FOIA requests for this information, and that process is very, very slow. Maybe there's a way to prioritize those data access type of FOIA requests. Or also, you've had various requests into that service desk on how to address this, you know, getting the license code and maybe address and name, official name published. This used to be well-known data set and maybe also like the strain list. Those are critical for interoperability for every licensee, regardless of their chosen solution. It's also been suggested at the last meeting, I think I was also at, you engaged with the technology industry a little better. You guys used to hold regular meetings with the integrators, and I thought that worked very well. You should bring that back, especially now that you got the entire technology stack under your control. I'll yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. If you could send me, and I'm not familiar with those requests, could you send me just a brief email that tells me the information you've been trying to get, that you've been told you need to put in a public records request for, and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, I'll get you. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Next, we'll hear from Jim Buchanan. Mr. Buchanan, we can't see or hear you yet.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I sure can. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know why you can't see me here, but I'll just start talking.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
First of all, I'd like to say Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year.
And appreciate your consistent work. I want to just kind of second what Phil said, basically. You know, we had the task force meeting, task force assigned by legislation. And what came out of it was, in the licensing work group, was 300 retail licenses, 200 producer processor licenses, distance changes to be made so there's a spot to put them at, and a few other recommendations. And those meetings seem to have been delayed, you know, to take it through the final stage. But, you know, it was worked through the licensing work group. And we feel the LCB has been quiet. You know, we have the task force did a great job. You know, we had some difficult conversations, but they did a great job. And at the end, you know, we kind of, you know, we got it done. Then the governor's Disparity Council approved the recommendations also a couple of days ago, earlier in the week. And we, you know, the LCB, who is the agency to implement them, has been extremely quiet. And like Phil said, stealth. It's like, where is the action from the LCB to implement the recommendations assigned by legislation to be able to put in? Where is the bill that represents that? You know, if there is one, then we sure would love to see it, you know, and to understand what it is. The communication is absolutely horrible between the community and the LCB. And there's nothing happening to try to bridge that gap, even though the communication has been horrible since 2013. You know, when we were harmed by the war on drugs, equity and equality is an equal part. Economic justice is having economics for our community. And where is that? Where is the LCB at pushing it? 38 licenses and 39 licenses is not it. Out of 1,800 something licenses, about 15 or 16 is not it for Black and brown people, you know, specifically Black people. And it might increase a little with Black and brown, but bottom line is it's not equitable. So when we've got, the governor did a fabulous job, and he said in his speech, when we presented to him community reinvestment fund for $250 million a year, we met with them, and they stepped up and did $125 million a year. It's not what we asked for, but it's a start. You know, so the governor's office stepped up. We got the task force that picked it up and stepped up after difficult conversations. Is the LCB going to step up and not do just what's comfortable, but do the right thing? We need to be on the right side of it. New York has 50% of their licensing going to social equity applicants from the beginning. That's the right thing to do. 40% of their cannabis tax money going to community reinvestment program. That's the right thing to do. You know, so not the comfortable thing, not the thing that you might want to present and say, well, you know, here's a Band-Aid. We got to cut down our whole side of our body from the head all the way down, a deep cut with a 12-inch deep in our flesh, and then want to put a Band-Aid on the arm and say, okay, now heal. No, you know, we're demanding true equity and equality. As a community, we are.
30 seconds.
And so what we would like to do, though, is we can't understand why everybody just doesn't organically want to be on the side of right. And we're asking the LCB to step up, do what's right, not what's comfortable, and do the right thing for our Black and brown folk in the community, because we're going to keep pushing until it happens.
Great. Thank you for your comments. Next is Elmer Dixon.
Chair Elmer Dixon registered to speak, but is not online with us today.
Okay, thank you. Daryl Powell. Good morning.
Good morning. Happy New Year's to everyone. My name is Daryl Powell. I'm here in the capacity of representing the NAACP. I'm the Vice President of Economic Development, and I've been working since June, maybe May, with the Washington African American Cannabis Association, and on the phone calls at the task force and the work groups to bring about what I consider something that's equitable, given we were left out in the first process. I've come to understand that there's 500+ licenses that are out in the community. And what's so horrible, if you go to the October 15th Puget Sound Business Journal, they show revenue by county of all the retail licenses. And I'm sitting here looking at $38 million of revenue, King County with 100 licenses, then 27 million in Pierce County. It's ridiculous that we can see this kind of wealth building that takes place and the African American community is locked out. And if the LCB and the legislature had centered equity when 502 was being written, and centered equity when 2870, and centered equity when 1443, we wouldn't find ourselves here chasing an opportunity that has, where the ship has already left. I would expect that the LCB to see, all you gotta do is look at your own data and look at the unintended, in the best case, I hope it's unintended consequences. But the worst case is it's conspiracy and it was meant to happen. The lottery was a fraud, and because if the lottery was equitable, African Americans would have been a part of the lottery and would have got their fair share. So I expect that this second time around, that our meager request that of the next 300 licenses in the form of 38 to 40 a year go to African American and other BIPOC communities. I would expect that you would understand and know that the reason why King County is doing so well is because all the white licensees have capitalized Capitol Hill, have capitalized Magnolia, have capitalized all the dense areas, and they're generating $4 to $5 million per store. So I wouldn't expect that the next 38 licenses go to Mason County or Douglas County or Whitman County. I would expect that the LCB would make sure that distance requirements are changed such that we can compete in dense areas. We can compete in areas that are populated, in the areas that we were arrested when we went to jail. I haven't seen the LCB make a statement on anything. I worked with the work groups. I've worked with the task force. We voted. We've taken those same things that we voted to the General Interagency Council on Health Disparities, chaired by Dr. Ben Danielson and her brother Victor Rodriguez. They voted unanimously on the 3rd to support the work group recommendations and the task force recommendations.
Daryl, you have 30 seconds.
We've talked with Senator Klobuchar. Senator Klobuchar says, well, the recommendations sound fine, but do you have the Cannabis Board coming out supporting it? And if you do, are they preparing any legislation that we could get on the calendar in this supplemental during this short period? And so we're here to say, where is the Cannabis Board? I'm curious, where is the Cannabis Board on this? What is their position? Are they actively supporting the recommendations of the task force and the work groups? Are they actively supporting the recommendation of the Council on Health Disparities? I need to know where the task force is, and I've been silent. So silence is complicit. So
And Gerald, your
understand,
time is up,
we've
sir.
been wrong, and if you're silent on it, you're complicit on us being wrong. Therefore, you support of what happened. An ask for 38 licenses is a meager ask. Do the right thing, like the governor has already started trying to do the right thing and put in a reinvestment act for the cannabis revenues.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your comments. Next up is Micah Sherman.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity to speak. My name is Micah Sherman. I'm the co-owner of Raven, a tier 2 producer processor in Olympia. I'm on the board of the Washington Sun and Craft Growers Association. I'm their representative with the Washington Cannabis Integrators Alliance and helped start that movement. And I'm also a legislative appointee of the Social Equity Task Force. As you can tell from all of those things, spend an awful lot of my time in my life working on these issues, and have extensively been involved in the work of the task force. And I really want to reiterate the comments that have been made thus far on that process. There's been a lot of recommendations that have been made throughout the last year, and there's been not a lot of activity within the agency to move those recommendations forward as they were progressing. I think we should take that feedback to heart and start to identify the ways that we can actively support those efforts rather than bringing up the things that are problematic with them and that are potentially preventing them from moving forward. While we appreciate the context that's often provided by the representatives of the LCB at these meetings, I have seen very little the mindset of coming into those meetings with the intention of moving forward those recommendations rather than just pointing out their potential pitfalls has not been a very helpful approach. And I think taking to heart what is being said in this meeting is very important, in that there's a ton of power that the board and the agency has to prepare the way for these recommendations that are now moving forward in the governor's office, moving forward in the legislature. Help is needed to make sure that these are as impactful, successful, and beneficial to the efforts that are being made as possible. And it's definitely time to shift the mindset and the approach to that process to one of being collaborative, cooperative, and a partner in that work. And I do want to say that I appreciate all of the effort that has been made, especially by Representative or Board Member Garrett on that process. And I would love to see some institutional support from the rest of the agency in that effort. I have been to pretty much all of the work group meetings and to all of the task force meetings. And I say it honestly with no ill will that we have not had that sort of active support that I think would have benefited the process. I've made lots of suggestions over the last year about things the agency could have been doing to move that forward, and I haven't seen the sort of reciprocity that I would have expected. And I think we still have a lot of opportunity to make this a successful legislative session in that regard, and I really hope that we can all work together to produce these outcomes that the governor's office is supporting, that the equity task force has recommended, that the Health Equities Council has now voted on supporting, that there's active support from a variety of different legislators in both the House and the Senate. This is a year that we could get some real significant improvements to our industry at the same time of moving forward social equity in our state. These are mutually beneficial processes. They are going to help our industry overall. The industry is broad. Thank you. The industry is broadly supportive of these policy changes, and we want to see these go into effect. This will help our industry. It will move us in a better direction, and the status quo for both small farmers and for people that have been excluded from participating isn't going to work anymore. We're not headed in a direction that is going to be sustainable for the long term for our businesses, and we need to come together and make these things happen. Thanks so much.
Okay, and next to speak is Victor Rodriguez.
Good afternoon. Good morning, actually. My name is Victor Rodriguez, and I am the Vice Chair of the Governor's Interagency Council on Health Disparities. The council believes that the war on drugs has resulted in significant harm to the Black communities and other communities of color. As an entity responsible for providing staff support for the Social Equity Cannabis Task Force, the council strongly supports the task force's work and the broad policy concepts of ensuring licenses are issued to those most affected by the war on drugs, reducing barriers, and supporting individuals who receive social equity retail license to foster success, and reinvesting cannabis tax revenue into disproportionately impacted communities. One core reason why the council supports this is, our primary goal is to be a body that provides recommendations to the governor on how to improve the health of Washington State. And what does equity mean? What does health equity mean? It means that we use data, first of all, and that we focus on the areas with the greatest needs. And by doing that, it actually improves the health of the whole population across so many indicators, health outcomes. The trend that we see is that Black communities, brown communities, communities of color, low-income communities, rural communities are often disproportionately suffering from bad health outcomes. Those are called health inequities. And these are health inequities are health outcomes that are unnecessary. They're unfair. They're not because people are choosing the wrong choices. It's not because they're, want to be in bad health. It's because the conditions in which they live in make it extremely difficult to make the healthy choice. So for example, in public health, we say you should eat healthy. You should go for walks, right? Well, how do you do that when you live in neighborhoods where it's not safe to do so? How do you do that in a neighborhood where there's no parks to walk to? How do you do that when you live in communities with food deserts? So the board has, I think, a very powerful opportunity to improve Washington's health by investing in communities, right, to build their wealth so that they can live in neighborhoods, have housing, have access to healthy food, have access to education, right? And so that's why we're really strongly support these efforts, and we believe that by doing so, it would actually improve the overall health of Washington State. So thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'm a longtime resident of Washington State, and I love this state, and I volunteer my time many hours because I believe in the communities here. And I believe that the board wants to do the right thing. And having worked in government before, I know that there's a lot of government barriers that sometimes make it hard to do the right thing. I know that. I've been in those situations. But I urge you to be bold. I urge you to do whatever you can, lift every rock to make sure that we could address these kind of historic issues that we have all inherited.
And
I know
Victor,
that many of you would want to address these things, the historic legacy of racism, right? We all inherited these things, and now it's up to us to address these things for our children and the future of our children. So again, thank you so much for that opportunity to speak, and I look forward to tracking and seeing how these efforts play.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate those comments. Thanks to everybody who spoke. That's the last person we have signed up. I would say again, I think we owe the group a larger and more detailed response, and we'll find a way to make sure that that happens quickly. I will say a couple of quick things, then I'll ask other board members if they would like to weigh in as well, particularly Member Garrett, who's been intimately involved in this process. The top line here is we're not doing nothing. The LCB is actually hard at work trying to do the work that's necessary under the law to implement some of the recommendations. I don't know for sure what status of some of these recommendations are because task force meetings were canceled and such forth. That has nothing to do with the LCB, and so I know there were work group recommendations, and I just don't know the answer to that. In part because of the law that prohibits member Garrett and I from attending any meeting together other than these public meetings. I don't have the level of detail at my fingertips, but we're working hard. I'll tell you a couple of quick things. One, I don't believe we're proposing legislation. We don't think that's necessary at this stage of the process, but we are doing rulemaking, and we've talked about that publicly numerous times over the last couple of months since that was first proposed, discussed, the initial statement approved by the board. We're working on what that outreach, public hearings, deliberative dialogues will be, run by our rules team that does an incredible job being open and inclusive in every rulemaking that we do. And so that is really a major effort of the agency right now. So I'm sorry that we've not done what we needed to make sure everybody knows both the depth and the pace that we're working on there, but we are not sitting on our hands. We are not looking just to be comfortable. Let me address the governor's proposal too. I fear there's some sense that maybe we don't support what he has proposed. Let me say we worked hard on that proposal. Our agency staff was intimately involved. We absolutely support it. We think it's a great way to move quickly to respond to what we heard today about the impacts of the war on drugs. Absolutely. 100% behind it, and helped fuel it, and really proud of our governor for stepping up and doing it in such a big way. Even though I know it's not all that people asked for, it's big. And I think it's great. That was not a recommendation. I know there's legislators that are proposing it, so we will see a really serious effort to get that passed this year, and I'm optimistic it will pass with the governor behind it. So the work is being done. We are not in a position to just approve whatever recommendations that have come to us. We do put it through a process, as we do all our rulemaking, which makes sure that it's within the authority that we have, so we don't have to wait for legislative approval to do it. We need to look for ways to make sure that things are legally sustainable as much as possible. We want to try to avoid any drawn out legal battles over anything we may do in this field. But I've been here since March, and I can assure you that everybody you see in this meeting, as well as in all our meetings, from the leadership of this agency down to the staff, are fully committed to this work. They don't hesitate. They're not fearful. They do want to take the big steps, but we want to do it in a way that is sustainable, doesn't overreach our existing authority. So we do have some guidelines, but we're going to put this all down on some place and make sure everybody can see it. We do have a social equity place on our website, which we could update and include much more about the rulemaking process and other things. And I think we'll be hearing a lot more about that rulemaking, including some sort of session where we can sit down and just talk about what that process is going to be, how to engage, what are the different steps that we go through, so everybody can see. We have no reason to try to be quiet. I don't believe we're being quiet on this, and like I said, I'm sorry that that's what we heard today. So we'll do better there. We'll make sure. I think we're doing some important work. We're doing it quickly, and we should be sharing that far and wide. With that, I'll pause. Member Garrett, do you want to add anything about your work on this?
Yes, and you covered a lot of it. I don't know where some of this miscommunication is coming from, but I want to start with the reason and how the task force was created is because the LCB introduced the bill to lead to the social equity task force and to lead to us getting recommendations on things that we can do as an agency. With that being said, the LCB has been actively listening in on all of the meetings. I have had staff to come on, listen, and to hear what the community has been saying, what they are going to recommend, and what they're requesting. From that process, the LCB has created its own internal task force to focus on what we're hearing and to start preparing to be ready for what's going to be presented to us. We're listening to those calls. We're carving out things that we can do, and we're waiting on things that to figure out what it is that has to go before legislation. We actually open up the CR 101 before receiving any recommendations in order to be ready for the recommendations. Kathy spoke earlier on the CR 101 and going to do a listening and learn session with the community to hear from them once we get recommendations. In doing my work of trying to listen to being part of the social equity task force and hearing what they're saying and going back to staff, I have had full support of the agency on trying to put together and be ready for what the task force is going to present to us. And excuse my voice, I've been fighting a cold for the last week. To my knowledge, and what's a little confusing here is the task force has not completed its work. Recommendations hasn't even been brought to us yet. So to say that we're not agreeing or going to accept the recommendations that haven't even been brought to the LCB yet. That process hasn't occurred. But in the meantime, based on what we have been hearing, we have been very actively working on figuring out how to accept the recommendations, what we can do to be ready for the recommendations. We created, during this process, we created a social equity website so that we can help people know what they need to know in order to be ready for when things open up and the process. So I just don't want staff to get frustrated by what we're hearing here today, knowing all of the work internal that we have been doing in support of this.
Yeah.
And I'm going to leave it at that.
Thank you. That's very helpful. In fact, yeah, we were out ahead of the recommendations, and that was my question, which I'm sure is that we've yet to see final recommendations, which is a little bit of a detriment to us. But we've started already with the rulemaking. We're out front. The other thing that I just wanted to mention was that the work that you and staff and others did on criminal background checks. We didn't wait for any recommendation there. We did really, I thought, important work there, which was supported largely. So we've been doing a lot, but not doing a great job explaining it, I guess, because people aren't hearing it. Member Hauge?
As everyone knows, this is my next to last board meeting. And I guess I wanted to offer my perspective as right now the longest serving board member and talk about what happened when we took the original rules to set up the three-tiered market around the state. And what we heard a lot then was that the LCB had done away with the dispensary market. The LCB had driven everyone out of business. The LCB had changed the community standards and the distances, and it was all our fault. As has been ably explained by our chair and by Ollie Garrett, who has been the one member of our three-headed beast here who's had the responsibility for maintaining contact with this, the work has been without a break since I have been on the board. This has been an issue that has been of topmost consideration, in large part because people come to our meetings and tell us about it, of course, but also because this is a place where we want to do the right thing. We are in a position not to create law. We are in a position to give shape to what the legislature and the governor gives us to work with. And we, as you've heard, are trying to do it here. And I guess I want my last word on this to be, everyone who can hear this board, the staff here, are your best friends. We're the ones who've kept this ball going over this last year. And that is not going to stop when I leave. It's not going to stop when David leaves. It's not going to stop when Ollie leaves. It's going to continue because it's the right thing to do. And I leave this agency with a clear understanding that everyone here is committed to doing the right thing. And I have no doubts that that will continue.
Thank you very much for those comments. We do need to, gather the details and get it out there and update our website and show people what we are doing. I think what you heard from the members is absolutely correct. But, if it's in a vacuum, it's not getting out to people. The task force recommendations, we're doing what we can based on what we have seen and what we think is the path we have in front of us, and we're taking it. But I want to thank the people who came to talk today about this and made us a little uncomfortable. That's great. And so we're now going to find out how we can do better talking about this. Now, we do listen. A couple of weeks ago, Peter Manning came and talked to us, and his concerns were more about the task force and asking us for help. And he said something that I've repeated many, many times since then. He came and said, I just found the actual minutes. And he said, when I come to these platforms where the LCB opens the doors to the public, it's a majority of white people coming in, and they talk about the issues that they're having in the industry and whatnot. We want a chance to participate in this type of setting. We want to come in and talk to you guys about terpenes and all this. We need this opportunity to come about. I thought that was just really meaningful to me, and I've repeated it to staff over and over again. I think it really draws a great picture of what that equity would look like. It's coming and talking about the issues of the industry beyond just coming to try to talk to us about how to get into the industry. So we have to get there. We have to bring you to that level. We have to do the work. We get it, and we are. And I know there's concerns about pace and all of that, but and there's no point in saying trust us. We got to show it, and we will. And I appreciate all the comments, and we will have staff work on compiling more of the details of this. We'll send it to those who spoke, but we'll also make sure that it's found. We can find it somewhere on the website so everybody can see it, and we'll do regular updates too. I think it would be worth doing that. Anything else on social equity, members? Okay. One last thing, back to David Busby. I just want you to know I did already get a note from the team about your comments. So please do send me a note on what are the information that specifically you're looking for. We'll see what we can do. And just coincidentally, this morning before our meeting, the CCRS steering committee met, and one of the things they talked about was engaging the industry more. Their focus right now is their highest priority will be to engage the industry on the improvements to the manifest process that they have promised. So we're on that. We'll do more on that too. So I appreciate you bringing that up, and please do follow up by email when you have a chance. I was just getting a message. Let me just see if I heard anything more. Okay, that does it. And with that, we will adjourn the board meeting for January 5th, 2022. Thank you all for coming. Thanks to the board members. Good to see everybody, and have a great day.